Good evening. This meeting of Monday, August 10th, 2020 for the Rio Rancho Board of Education for Rio Rancho Public Schools is now called to order. Will you please join me by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? Secretary Scott will be leading us, and please mute your microphones.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Secretary Scott. We'd like to welcome everyone from the district office and all those who are joining us in the community. Tonight, we have started school, and so we'd like to welcome everyone to our first board meeting since school has started. We will start our meeting tonight with some introductory comments by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. B. Sue Cleveland. Dr. Cleveland.
Good evening, and thank you. And you'll be pleased to know my comments are shorter than they've been the last several meetings, but I do want to give you just some brief updates on some things that are going on in the district. And we plan to have a much more detailed presentation in a couple of weeks when we have firmer numbers. So as soon as we can get the PowerPoint up, we're ready to go. There we go. Okay, next slide. We still have a lot of students that are registering. We have that every year, and some folks wait until the day of registration, the day school starts to register, and so we always encourage people to do it before that time because you have a longer wait, and it's people had to wait. But we're accommodating everyone who has shown up to register, and we're glad every single person that is registering is there. So we really don't have very firm numbers at all at this point. And hopefully by the next board meeting, we can give you a very detailed report on what our enrollment numbers are looking like. We do know that they are below last year's, and that's really very disconcerting because under the New Mexico public school finance process, you're funded on your enrollment for the prior year. So this year we will be funded on the number of students that we had last year. And if the number is low this year, then we will have less money to spend in the following year. So we're still very hopeful that some folks will still be joining us. And but we do know at this point our enrollment is down. We just don't know how much. This, as I said, it's not such a big issue this year, but it could be a very large problem for next year, as we would see reduced funding unless we can get the legislature to give us a 1-year grace, and that's what a lot of school districts are planning to ask for this year. And one of the things that we are hoping they might consider is funding in the current year next year. So whatever that would look like, that would be the amount that you would get. There's some districts that are worried about that because they tend to lose students every year, and they would lose that safety net for a declining district. So I don't know what the chances are of that being adopted. We did have, for the first time ever, the state has withheld some of its own money for the extended year program. And so they are waiting to see what the numbers actually look like before allocating the extended year funds. So they've seen the need to shift this year because of the circumstances. And I hope that there'll be some flexibility for us next year, regardless of what the numbers turn out to be. I just thought you might be interested in the virtual options since we're on virtual right now. And as you know, elementary is all Google Classroom. The middle school has 2 options. They have Edgenuity or Google Classroom. And the high school has 3 options. Their option is Edgenuity, Google Classroom full-time virtual, and Google Classroom, which will be hybrid once we're open again for for actual in-person attendance in our schools. So that's kind of the breakdown. About 3/4 of our students and their parents have selected Google Classroom as the program that they are going to be following this year. 25% are enrolled in Edgenuity. And at the secondary level, Edgenuity is now pretty much closed, except for students that are new enrollees. But we are trying to accommodate every student, and the high schools are certainly still very open for enrollment in the Google Classroom. As you well know, we have started already at the middle schools and high schools as of Friday. We traditionally start on a Friday because it gives us the whole weekend to be able to work out any of the problems or challenges that we have related to the first day of school. So people have been hard at work this weekend, trying to balance classes and do all the things that are normal on the very easiest of years. And of course, for this year, the high schools are managing three different schedules. And it's been a rather daunting task, but they've worked so hard to make this work. Let's see. There have been a lot of late registrations. As I've said, we've had that before, but this year it's far greater than we've ever seen before. And I think people are just kind of waiting to see how things are working in the community, and before they made a final decision which option they wanted. But by waiting so late, that it made it very hard for the schools to be able to do those schedules in a timely manner. So if you come in on Friday and want to register, it's harder to get your classes and schedules on that day. So some folks have had to wait, and but they're working just as fast as they can to get all of those schedules completed. The late registrations are just a real challenge, and especially at a time when we have all of these various options. Normally we just have one schedule, we have one master schedule. In effect, we have 3 at the high schools and we have 2 at the middle schools. So we're getting there, we're getting closer. And the other, of course, has been the very short time period in terms of how little time they had to build master schedules. Master schedules are started months in advance, and they are not an easy thing to accomplish in the very best of times. And so this, I just really want to commend the front office staff and the principals and everyone, the registrars and schedules, everyone who's been part of that for the extra hours and time they've had to put in to get things ready for the start of school. But we're almost there. We've had a few questions, and I just wanted to quickly answer those tonight because we've had some calls on that. There aren't any lockers issued this year. Lockers are breeding grounds for all kinds of things, and so we're not doing lockers this year, at least not the first part of the year. Normally, as you know, textbooks are distributed in class, and there's a process for doing that. Because we do not have in-person classes right now, we're having to meet with each family individually to pick up the books. So normally what happens is the books go out to the teachers give them out in class, they do the record keeping. What's having to occur this year is all of the books are having to be consolidated at one location. Then the family's having to come in and pick up those books. And so it's taking a while to get that done. And it's just, there's no way to really speed that process up because you do have to wait. People have to come in, have to sign for those books. And it's been very time consuming. On the other hand, the teachers are making all the adjustments that are needed. Nobody's getting assignments out of books or readings out of books or anything until they're out. So it should not, they're using other alternative kinds of resources in their classes until the time that all of the textbooks have been distributed. And I don't think it will be a huge issue for the students at the beginning of the year. Chromebooks is another thing that is ongoing right now. We had some distributions Friday, some today. The majority of students have been able to get their computers. However, we've had some families who've not come in yet to pick up their Chromebook. And so I would encourage them, if they've not been able to do that yet, that they look at the website for the makeup days, and we're going to have a couple of makeup days. It's so important that you get a Chromebook because everything is loaded onto that Chromebook, software, all kinds of applications. And if you don't have a Chromebook, you are really at a disadvantage. So assessments and everything is actually tied to that Chromebook. So even if you have a computer at home, I would really encourage you to still come and pick up a Chromebook for your student. Because it will make it very difficult for them if they don't have that. And like I said, we have some makeup days that are coming up, and we really hope people will show up and pick up those Chromebooks. But the distributions have gone fairly well, fairly smoothly. Again, lots of people have been involved in that effort to try to get that out to every student. We have, a lot of students at Rio Rancho, and thanks to IT and all of the other folks who supported them to get the Chromebooks out. And again, if you don't have your Chromebook and you're listening, you need to please get to the school site and pick those up. Just a couple of points with staff. We have HR has been working diligently to obtain all of the documentation that staff would need for an ADA request for an accommodation. And we are following the American with Disabilities Act in terms of determining accommodations for staff. And they need to fill that paperwork and get it in. And so I think we're pretty much up to date on that. And the HR staff has really been working case by case with individuals to try to work out an accommodation. Then we've had other people ask for an accommodation that don't meet the ADA requirement. And so, obviously, if you qualify under ADA, that is it's a non-negotiable, and you have to comply with that. We've had some other people that have really good requests, but they're not necessarily ADA kinds of requests. And so we've been trying to work with them on a case-by-case basis. It all depends on the availability of whether we have any slots. But I checked with Mike Chavez in HR, and he said to the best of his knowledge, we have been able to this point to accommodate every staff request that has come up. And so we really appreciate that effort on their part. And we do have some folks who have really good reasons why they need that accommodation. And so far, we've been able to accommodate that. But again, that is dependent upon whether we have an opening in an area to use that virtual assignment. And it's worked out okay up till this point. And then the last thing I'd like to share is I've had a personal conversation with the secretary on a couple of occasions about not just the general PPE for the general staff, but has there been any thought given to additional support and equipment for those staff who work with higher need kids, with some that may have a greater risk in terms of exposure than maybe another group of children might. And so he shared with me that they're looking at a couple of different things with regards to that. One relates to the masks, which has been a question a lot of our parent university evenings. But the others, they're looking at having the state purchase some of the PPE that would be more medical grade, higher quality, more secure for those that are working with in environments that are more problematic, more challenging than others. So he said more information is going to be forthcoming on that, but very receptive to a discussion about the need for at least a certain part of staff to have higher protection, perhaps than some others. And again, that made it very clear that is working with very fragile children, medically at-risk children. He has kind of a narrow scope as to who would qualify for that. But we were very pleased to have him talk about the fact that they are looking into that and are hopefully going to be able to give school districts some financial help in that area. I think you are aware, but it's actually becoming an important part of getting your reentry plan approved. We have been able to provide daycare options for all of the staff members who need it, and it will be under the direction of SAFE and Student Services. They have an outstanding record of providing this kind of support and care to our students, and so we're good with that. We've got that all set up. That's ready to go, and hopefully that will provide some assistance. We received some really nice notes back from our staff. I sent one of them to you in terms of the level of appreciation for folks who are needing that kind of support right now. That may expand depending on what does happen in Albuquerque. If you've been following some of the changes that are going on there, we didn't know how long that service would be needed, and it looks like it may be needed longer than what we had originally thought, and maybe for more people than we had originally thought. We continue. Our SEU president, Billy Helene, and I are communicating weekly together with the staff, and the communications office did survey the staff, asked if they wanted us to continue weekly, biweekly, monthly, too much, too little, what did they want? And they indicated that they would like for us to continue the weekly briefings with the staff. So I will work with Billy, and we will continue to send that out every Thursday, as we have done for the last several weeks. The intern program is certainly gearing up now, and we're getting ready to interview for the positions. We're really excited about this program, and once we get into it a little bit, we'll come back and share that with you. We have had discussions about an intern program for many years with the union, and we've never done it. This is going to be an opportunity to start that program, maybe not in the most the easiest of times, but certainly in the times that we need right now to have more coverage in the classroom. And one of the challenges as you work through a pandemic is that you hope you don't get people who are ill, but if you do, you really need qualified people to be able to step in. And we have some wonderfully qualified substitutes. Our fear is it's not enough. And so we are looking at trying to add these teacher interns. These are folks who have teaching licenses or certificates, or people who do have majors in other areas, but are willing to take the coursework to become a teacher. So these are folks that have the degrees. Most of them have the certificates, and it gives them an opportunity to back up folks if we have situations that warrant that. The other thing that I mentioned it before, but I want to mention it again, is looking at substitutes. We're going to have to look at that differently than we did in the past. And we normally had a situation where you might be in one school one day and you might be in another school the next. And so you just kind of went as you were needed and assigned. We've asked HR to look at trying to limit the number of schools that people go to in the week, because here's the worst case scenario. On Monday, I'm in this school. On Tuesday, I'm in Rio Rancho Middle. And Wednesday, I'm at Enchanted. And Thursday, I'm at the high school. And then Friday, I become ill. And so then you've had 5 schools that have had exposure to a situation. So we're going to try to encourage people to kind of cluster in buildings as opposed to traveling to a different site every day, as we think that will protect them. And we also think it will protect our staff and our students. Again, this creates a tremendous amount of additional work for HR, because now they have to kind of look at where people are going in terms of that safety issue. And then just want you to be aware that we are working on a memo of understanding with the union, just to be sure we're all on the same page with regards to the business rules that we operate under. We thought that was really important right now, just so to be sure that we all have a common understanding. And so Mike Chavez has been working with Billy and her staff to come up with this memo of understanding. This is not the negotiated agreement. It doesn't change anything in the agreement. It's just a short-term kind of agreement between us to make sure that we all kind of see things the same way, so that when we do have issues, we've already worked them out in advance instead of having to try to work them out at that particular point in time. And so they're close to getting that finished and resolved. But I did want you to know that that was going on, and that it is not the negotiated agreement. That's not the purpose at all. People are now beginning to call in larger numbers and more concerned about student transportation. And so folks that are having issues with that, the best way to get that resolved is to go to the website and go to the transportation department. If you'll look in that area, you will see there's very detailed instructions on how to sign your son and daughter up for a bus, and to get that information taken care of. The actual signing up for a specific bus will begin on August the 17th, and you may do all of that virtually, and that will also be on that site. And parents who have already registered their children last year or in the summer, you do not need to re-register. You're fine, you're good to go. But if you have not signed up for transportation and you plan to do so, then you will be able to sign up on the 17th. And then I just put the number on the screen for anyone who is needing any help and support for transportation. They will be very helpful, very willing to help you if you will contact them. I know some of you have been listening in on our parent university nights, and they've been pretty well attended, and really good questions from the parents, the community, and all of those sessions have been recorded. So if there's one that you missed or one that you would like to know more about or hear it again, that is available to everyone on our website. On the 13th, there will be a session on social emotional learning and a new district counseling and support program called Ripple Effects. And so if you would like to know more about that program, what it looks like, we will have a team that will be presenting that night. And then on the 20th, there will be a very special session that will be presented by the UNM Health Sciences and the Department of Health, Office of School and Adolescent Health. And they will be presenting on a topic that I think is very dear to a lot of parents, and that is helping your child cope with anxiety during COVID. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that presentation. And I think it could not be more timely. And I think a lot of parents may have an interest in that. So I talked to one person last week and still hadn't figured out how you get on. It's really very easy, very simple. You go to the website and you'll see a little camera, and you can go through that way to get there. But if you just play around a little bit with the website, you'll find it, because I think there are 2 or 3 different routes to actually getting into the presentation. But if you do have any problems, then contact our communications office, and they'll be glad to help you and show you how to do that. Okay, that's really all I have. As I said, it's very short this evening. I would answer any questions, though, if anyone has any questions on these brief comments.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Real quick, before we go to questions, I'm going to have Jane take a roll call for us that I forgot to do at the beginning. If you just give us 1 second. Jane, would you mind doing that for us?
I will. Board President Galbraith.
Present.
Vice President Morgan.
Present.
Secretary Scott.
Present.
Board Member Cullen.
Present.
Board Member Coleman.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, Board. Secretary Scott, did you have anything you wanted to ask Dr. Cleveland about what she talked about?
I do not. Thank you. Thank you for the thorough presentation.
Thank you. Vice President Morgan?
No questions, but again, thanks for the work. Appreciate it.
Board Member Cullen?
No.
Okay, and Board Member Coleman?
No, I don't. Thank you, though, for presenting.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Cleveland, so much for, I think that helps us and it definitely helps the community to hear those things. So thank you so much for your presentation. And one note, I like to go, when I watch the Parent University classes, I usually just go through the Facebook page. I'll look it up there and I'm able to get into the Parent University classes. So, and they've been very good. So thank you for everyone who's been putting those together. Okay, we will now go on to item E, to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations. Any discussion on the prioritized agenda?
No?
I move to approve the prioritized agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Secretary Scott and a second by Vice President Morgan. Jane, can you take a roll call vote on this?
I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Board Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. As for public comment, we have received a number of public comments for individuals in our community. First from Cheryl Daniels, Mary Stett, Stacy O'Connor, Catherine Elliott, Chris Fisher. Each board member has received this public comment, and also all the district staff, and Dr. Cleveland has also received this public comment, and we have all read through it. For those wishing to give public comment, we would love for you to do so. You can do that by going onto the Rio Rancho Public Schools webpage and going to the board, the district, and then going to the board, and you will see a form there where you can submit any question or any comment that you would like to give for the next meeting. And we appreciate those comments. We will now approve our consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda?
No?
Dr. Cleveland, do you recommend approval of the consent?
Yes, I recommend approval.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us?
I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Board Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll now move on to the business portion of our meeting. First, we have a report. The Board of Education met in a closed executive session on August 10th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m. under Section 10-15-1H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act to discuss the superintendent's contract. The matters discussed in the closed meeting were limited only to those specified in the notice of a separate closed meeting. Item B, we will consider the approval of the July 27th, 2020 unapproved board minutes. Is there any discussion or changes for the July 27th unapproved board minutes? Do we have a motion? Thank you. Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the July 20th, 2020 unapproved board minutes.
This is Board Member Coleman. I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeffrey Morgan and a second by Board Member Coleman. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us?
I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Board Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item C, we will now discuss the revisions of policy 1000, compulsory school attendance. This is the first reading, and Tana Burgos, our Executive Director of Student Services, will be presenting. Actually, at this time, we will present items C. I'm just going to name them all out, Tana, so you can go through each of them. So C through E, and we will do questions after we go through each of the policies. Go ahead, Tana.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is Tana Burgos, the Executive Director of Student Services at the District Office for Rio Rancho Public Schools. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland, we are bringing 3 policies this evening with lots of interesting and new changes from the PED and then also through the federal government, Title IX. So the first policy that we're going to be starting with this evening is Policy 1000, Attendance for Success. And I do have Carla Schultz here who's going to come on as well. And if she can't get her video going, I know she is here just with her.
Actually, I'm on the line. Can you hear me by audio?
Yes, we can hear you by audio.
Okay.
So, okay, great. So she is going to actually go over the policy, but I just want to kind of reiterate a couple things. In this policy and the next one, 1002, many of the items that are being added, the district has been doing. And so it really is going into these policies and creating them with new information that the PED wants us to put in. So, but we've been doing it. So there are some things that we're going to have to add and some things we'll have to tweak, but I just want everyone to know that many of these items that are in these policies we have been doing. Just so that everyone understands that piece of it. And so we are going to start with the first one, Attendance for Success, and then we'll move on to the next one, 1002, which also has to do with attendance as well. And Lauren Hatch has also been working with Carla Schultz and myself as well. So Carla, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. I apologize. It looks like my video is not working. The 1000 policy and the 1002 policy should just be read together. We made the decision to segregate out in policy 1000 just the overview of the law. It provides as Tana said, you all have been doing this already, but in 2019, the legislature passed the Attendance for Success Act, which tracks a federal movement away from truancy and away from disciplinary action for students who are missing school, but instead focuses on interventions and providing interventions for students. It requires that students be put into various categories or tiers, as the law calls it. And then there are various interventions that will have to be provided at those intervention levels. And as Tana mentioned, and as I'm sure Dr. Cleveland's aware, the district is already largely doing this. It just requires a bit of tweaking to track the 2019 law, which didn't go into effect until this school year. PED issued some guidance relatively recently, last month, about how to do the attendance taking during remote instruction. So there's ways in which the district and the board has some leeway about how you're going to be doing attendance taking. And so I know that Tana and Dr. Cleveland probably have some ideas about their preferred ways in which to do that. But the 1000 policy really does just outline the construct of this new Attendance for Success Act, takes out the provisions that had to do with truancy and the ways in which the reporting and potential consequences or penalties for parents were laid out. There is a point at which information may need to be shared with the probation department, but the way that that is done has changed. So this policy largely lays out the new definitions, the new terminology that's used in the Attendance for Success Act, identifies terms that are used throughout, what the early interventions look like, intensive support, and that sort of thing. We've taken out the students in need of intervention terminology and the terms that were there before. It's going to require the creation of some attendance teams on the campuses, but as Tana mentioned, I believe you're largely doing that already. And so sets out the various ways in which students can be absent. It doesn't really speak to absences that are not approved or authorized or excused, but that's sort of implied in the law. The law sets out ways in which absences can be excused, and requires interventions or certain opportunities for students where they're missing school as a result of unexcused absences, and create certain obligations for the district. So this one is relatively straightforward. It just talks about the requirement that students of a certain age attend school if they haven't graduated already or are not attending a homeschool or a charter school or a private school, and talks about just the general construct of how attendance is going to be taken during that time, how absences get tracked, the reasons for approved absences, and then it largely moves over to policy 1002, which, as I said, they should sort of be read together. And that policy spells out the details of the various tiers, the 4 tiers, the intervention tiers, where students are having challenges with attendance, and the interventions that have to be provided to those students at each of those tier levels. Even students who are not having any attendance issues at all are still categorized into a tier, as you'll see when you look at the 1002 policy. So I know there's a lot there, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or Tana is happy to answer any questions if you have some.
Okay. Thanks for being here, Carla Schultz. We appreciate you working with us on these. We'll go to our board real quick. We'll start with Jeffrey Morgan. Do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Noreen Scott.
I have no questions.
Okay. Wynn Coleman.
No questions. Thank you, Carla.
And Catherine Cullen.
No, this is Catherine Cullen. So they're really not different. I'm trying to just go through this policy 1000 again because I saw it somewhere. So they end up fitting in one of these tiers. Say if a parent takes their student out for vacation for a week, and they excuse it, but then we're doing it. Does it sound like we're going to have to do an intervention once you're over 10 days, even if it's excused?
Well, the way in which the law is written, there are various ways in which a student can be excused. Going on a discretionary vacation might not be one of those.
Right.
This is an area where I think we were all hoping for a little additional guidance from PED on this, on the excused and unexcused, because as I mentioned, the law doesn't even use the term unexcused absences. It sets out some absences that must be excused, but it's an area where it would be ideal if PED provided some greater guidance on this. But as you can imagine, PED is a little overwhelmed with getting schools restarted right now. And so they've really only addressed the issue in any written form on the remote instruction.
Okay. Because we know a lot of parents, I mean, not a lot, but we do have parents that do that. They might take them out a week or more. And so I think that was the issue with this law when it went into effect, it seemed like.
Right.
So we just need
It does, and it would potentially drop a student into one of the different intervention tiers, but then the district has set out what the protocol or what the interventions are at those stages, and it might just mean an opportunity to make up coursework. It might mean some kind of meetings with the parents. If you had parents doing that regularly or routinely, it might require some other referrals, maybe for some family services.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Tana, did you want to speak about anything else on that one before you guys go into the next?
No, I think just really, I mentioned at the beginning, and then Carla restated that many of these items we are already doing, and so it might be changing the name of it, or it might actually making it official on our campuses, but most of these things we are doing, but we might just have to say, okay, here's the name of what we're doing since we didn't call it something before. But I just want to reassure you all that we've been working very hard with our attendance with our students.
Okay, thank you. So we can move on to the next policy, unless there's anything else from the board, which is was that already wrapped into that, Carla, 102, or we're going to 102 now? We're going on to 104, is that right?
Well, what I said was wrapped in, 102 kind of wrapped in, but
Okay.
As you all get a chance to take a look at 102, if you have some additional questions, this one largely just lays out how the interventions work. And the various tier levels for interventions. And as Tana mentioned, it may just require changing some terminology and ways in which terminology is being used internally, and making sure that the protocol that's being used by the district now aligns with these requirements and numbers and percentages for absences at each of these tier levels.
Yeah, and also knowing, I know many of the administrators and APs and counselors, when they look at this information, they'll be saying, oh, we already do that, or we already do that, we already do that. So just really making sure that we're very clear when we're reporting, because we do have to report to the PED, that we're very clear about, yes, we've been doing these things and we will continue to do so. And the ones that we haven't, then we'll add them in.
So on that one, I think both Tana and I are happy to answer any questions on that one, if you have any.
Board, do you have any questions on 1002 policy?
No.
I'll just look at your, okay.
No.
Okay, good. Catherine Cullen, are you good? Okay. Okay, we are good to move on to 1004, which is Title IX, first reading.
So this is a pretty big undertaking and has changed quite a bit. It hasn't changed Title IX, but it's just changed how it looks for our school, of being the Title IX coordinator, but then having investigators. We have a process and procedure already in place. We might have to make some changes to that. We think we have a plan as a district. I've met with the HR department, also with Lauren Hatch, and then also getting advice from Carla Schultz. And so I'm going to let her go over, because she definitely, she is very specific on this and knows all the laws. But I think it's important to note that we've always done what we were supposed to do for Title IX, but there have been some changes that we are going to have to make sure that we have certain people that are in positions to be able to do investigations.
Okay, thanks. This policy is the result of a major shift in the Title IX regulations that have come from the Department of Education. These regulations, these draft regulations, were proposed about a year and a half ago, a little over, almost 2 years ago now. And the Department of Education finalized those in May, and they become effective Friday. There's several, just so that you know, there are several pending lawsuits against these regulations. There have been also multiple requests from various organizations, including a number of states' attorney generals, including our own from here in New Mexico. The New Mexico's, or the National School Boards Association has asked that the department abate the implementation of these, given the district's challenges across the country with just starting school again in the COVID-19 crisis. So many organizations and elected officials have asked the department to hold off on putting these regulations in place, but barring a court decision or something dramatic before Friday, these are big changes that go into effect. The regulations, according to the Department of Education, are aimed at creating greater due process where there are allegations of sexual harassment and creating what the department calls more fairness in the process. The Department of Ed seems to come from the position that districts have favored alleged victims of sexual harassment over alleged perpetrators. And so you'll see that there's quite a lot of process built in here, and there are significantly lengthy procedures now built in here where there's been an allegation of sexual harassment. Whether or not to move forward with a sexual harassment allegation, whether that has to be investigated or whether it must be dismissed now under the law. What constitutes sexual harassment has changed significantly. And so you'll see in the definition of sexual harassment that's in the, I think it's on this next page in the policy, the definitions have changed significantly. They're much narrower than they were. So much misconduct that we might think of as sexually motivated misconduct at school is not going to be considered sexual harassment under Title IX. And so while the district could take other actions under standards of student behavior or code of conduct, it will not be addressed or investigated as Title IX. Where the conduct would constitute Title IX, there are at least three major not decision makers. I don't want to use that word because it has a very specific use in the regulations. There are three very specific roles in this new process, and that's your Title IX coordinator has very specific obligations and has certain options available to her in this process. Where there's a viable complaint of sexual harassment, the Title IX coordinator has the option of investigating that herself or using another person, a second person, to be an investigator. Once that investigation is completed, and there are certain steps that have to be done during that investigation, and certain written reports and notifications that have to be issued at various stages, then there's a third individual, the decision maker, and the decision maker cannot be the Title IX coordinator or the investigator of the alleged sexual harassment. That person then weighs all the evidence. What districts do have an option of using preponderance of the evidence or clear and convincing evidence in deciding whether alleged conduct constituted sexual harassment. It's my recommendation and our recommendation that districts use preponderance of the evidence, which is the standard that's used in most other reviews of potential misconduct, which means more information than not would indicate that it occurred. Clear and convincing evidence is more like a criminal standard. And so I think for equity's purpose, you'll want to use a standard that's equitable with the other misconduct that you investigate. And that doesn't provide for greater opportunity for challenging it. Once a decision's been issued and a written decision's been issued to both the parties, either side still has an opportunity to appeal that, in which case then there's a fourth role, which is the appeal decision maker. And so the district will need to decide if that's going to be the superintendent or designee, or if an appeal goes to the board. I think for practical purposes, probably having it be the superintendent or designee or an outside contractor, even that the district might use to do this role, would probably be the better course of action, but that's a decision left to you all. So you'll see that it says page 1 of 5 at the top. I think it's actually, the numbering was off. I think that the final document is about 10 pages long when it's cleaned up. I think it was about 300 pages when I sent it to Cortana. But we've, you know, it's about 10 pages long. It reflects pretty much everything that's required by the new regulations. I know that in the past, in your Title IX policy, you took the approach of kind of summarizing the law in the various sections rather than spelling this out, but I wanted everyone to have an understanding of what is required now. And you can make decisions, and Tom, I've talked about this, you all can make a decision if you want this level of detail in your policy. Certain elements of this have to be in policy under the regulations. Others could be in administrative, in the administrative regulations or procedures that are adopted, but it does need to be in writing, because where the district does have to show compliance with Title IX, and that includes putting some of this information either in policy or regulations that are provided to parents, families, anyone else who could, employees, anyone else who could potentially make a report of sexual harassment. And it needs to be available on the district's website. So having this information all in one policy does ease that ability to do that and meet that requirement. So there's a lot in this new policy. There's a lot in these new regulations. Over 100,000 comments were submitted to the Department of Education to these proposed regulations because they were such a dramatic change. A lot of people think that it puts too much of a burden on school districts and creates a process that's different than exists for other forms of alleged discrimination. So to be determined in these court appeals to see if anything changes or comes out differently. But as of now, Friday, these new regulations go into effect. And so this policy is aimed at ensuring compliance with that. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Carla. Real quick, Dr. Cleveland, did you want to give any comments on these policies as we're talking about them?
Just a couple of quick comments. On the ones related to attendance, I just want to stress again to the community the importance of everyday matters. And so this desire to get children in school and have them in school is absolutely critical. You cannot teach children that are not there. And this year is going to be a year unlike any other that we're going to depend on families helping us to get children involved in school every day. And just because we're virtual doesn't mean we're not having school. We're having school and we are taking attendance, and it's just critical that children be there. And so I just want to stress not just the legality piece of it, but the importance of children being in school. It's just absolutely essential that they come every day. We're going to have a lot of challenges this year. We want our children to be able to progress. So it's just a comment. It's essential. We need it. We think it's extremely important, but we're really asking for parent involvement and help this year to make sure our children are in school every day, regardless of which format, whether we're in remote, whether we're in hybrid, or whether we eventually return back in person. All of those are important. Then my comment about Title IX is just two quick things. We have an excellent track record in terms of Title IX in this district. And so I want to certainly give Tana a lot of credit for that. She works really hard. Any incident that comes is fully investigated, and we try to resolve it. But it's not just a compliance piece for us. It is also, it's something we really believe in. It's something we think is really important. And we want everyone to have the same opportunities. The other person who's just really played a key role in this is Larry Chavez. And he's worked on this as well over the years. And I think what you see are the results of that in terms of the quality programs we have, both for our young men and young women. And we're really proud of our programs. But it's, I just want to stress that we take this seriously. We've worked hard, and our track record in our district is excellent. And I give credit to everyone, but a special recognition to both Tana and Larry for the work they've done in that area.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Okay, board, I'll start with Noreen Scott. Do you have questions on Title IX or any of the others?
Yes, Dr. Cleveland, on Title IX, do you think we need to have a detailed approach to the policy, or can we have the abbreviated approach? What direction do you recommend?
I think that we have to have in the policy whatever the statute requires. And so if it's requiring us to put all of this in, we can certainly do that. It's long and involved, but it seems like everything these days are. And so do I have a preference? I have a preference for the short and sweet. I just think that's always a better approach to most anything in terms of policies. But it's my understanding, and Tana, correct me if I'm wrong on that most everything, or Carla, that everything that's in here is pretty much what we have to have. And so unfortunately, I think you have a lot of places that don't take it seriously. And when they don't, and they're not committed to it, then what happens is more and more is written into policies, into statutes, into regulations to force that compliance. But I think our compliance has been strong throughout the years. I think we have a really good track record I would put up against anyone in terms of Title IX. I would prefer the short and sweet.
Yeah, this is Tana Burgos, and one of the things that I think I can work with Carla on is in the past we also have made a lot of our policies short and sweet, but then the process and the procedure is the very detailed part.
Right.
So that's always an option. But of course, as Dr. Cleveland said and Carla Schultz said, whatever items need to be in the policy, we've got to have in there. But if there are ones that we can put in the process and procedure, we can do that. And so then it doesn't have to be in the policy.
Thank you.
I would just add one more thing to that. And this area has the potential for litigation, and it's one of those areas where there may, because of the fact that it's litigated so much, that you may need more specificity, simply to be sure everyone understands what the expectations are.
Okay, thank you. Jeffrey Morgan?
I do not. I just got to do a little more reading to really understand it. That's all.
Okay. Catherine Cullen?
Yes, this is board member Cullen. So Tana, are we going to have to hire somebody in addition?
Yeah, so we have spoken. HR has also met with us as well, and we went through a training
With this
year. Oh, is that me or is that Catherine?
It's Catherine. I think you're good on answering now.
Okay. It could be me. So that's why is it me or Catherine?
It's always been a mess.
So no, I know mine has been a mess too. So we talked with HR, or we've met, and we don't believe we need to hire anybody at this time. We believe that we can use the investigator that we have for this purpose. And so no, we don't think we do at this time, but we will definitely reassess as we move along.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And Wynn Coleman?
No, my question was answered. So thank you.
Okay. So Carla, you recommend, I know you said we could kind of take things out, but you do recommend that we put all of those things into this policy. Is that correct?
Well, I understand the motivation for wanting to keep policies short and sweet. That's generally my inclination as well. I generally prefer policies to have less rather than more, because then that leaves the administration the flexibility of kind of tweaking or modifying procedures on a day-to-day basis. I'll say that I agree with Dr. Cleveland that there is benefit to having everyone know be on the same page and understand what's expected. And so because of the extensive notice requirements in the Title IX policy and the regulations, the Department of Education requires that the information about how to file complaints, where to file complaints, how the process works, be provided to parents, employees, students, and anyone else who could be a reporter of sexual harassment. That requirement and it be posted on the website, and that it be available in all handbooks and all procedures. I think that the potential for missing something it's risky. So I would hate to, in this case, I can see the benefit to having the degree of specificity that's in here, because you know that at least you can work out the detail procedurally in the administrative procedures in terms of how you're going to apply this and who's going to do it and the details of what you might do. I think that having the general construct of it, even though it's lengthy in policy, has some advantages for ease of notification and making sure that everyone understands what the processes are and how things can take place and how the process is going to work.
Okay, thank you, Carla, for that. Is there any further discussion, board, on, and I'm just going to look at you on these policies as our first reading? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Tana, for your presentation, and Carla Schultz, thank you so much for being here and helping us with that, and for everyone who worked on those policies. It's hard for me to read through them all, so I can only imagine as you put them together. So we really, really appreciate all the hard work that goes into that. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. It was great to see you all.
Good to see you. Well, we didn't get to see you, but good to hear you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we will now have a discussion regarding proposed policy 808, armed security personnel. This is our first reading. Sal Maniaci, our Executive Director of Safety and Security, will be presenting for us.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, and members of the board. Here this evening, thank you for your time to present to you proposed school board policy 808, armed school security personnel. Little background, the 2019 New Mexico legislative session approved House Bill 129. This legislation outlined required training, eligibility for armed school security personnel, and also required that a local school board is the only one who may authorize school security personnel to carry firearms on school premises. So Rio Rancho Public Schools, as we all know, has been operating an armed school security program for approximately a year and a half, and has done so with great success and tremendous community support. So we're bringing to you this proposed school board policy this evening because we are waiting for the New Mexico Public Education Department to create the rule governing armed school security personnel. They created that rule, New Mexico Administrative Code 61212, which became effective July 28, 2020. So the Safety and Security Department has been working very closely with General Counsel Lauren Hatch on the revision of the Armed School Security Personnel Process and Procedure, which outlines how the program will operate with great specificity and not leaving any room for error. We've worked very closely with that. We have a revision already completed. We've also been incredibly proactive working on a training curriculum that will ensure that all our armed security school personnel have the required training, and I'm glad to announce that they're actually attending that training this week. The Public Safety Psychology Group is providing that training for us. They are a New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy accredited training facility. Dr. Troy Rogers, who runs that organization, has been in contact with the New Mexico Public Education Department's Safe Schools Bureau and been in contact with them, communicating with them the curriculum that he's giving to our armed school security personnel to make sure that we are completely compliant with all the rules and regulations set by this new legislation. So the policy is very brief. It's 808, and it deals specifically, it references 22518, which says that only a local school board or governing body of a charter school can make the decision to have armed personnel carry a firearm on school premises, and must do so in an open meeting and be formalized as a policy by the board. So we're compliant with that. We're also letting the board know that the superintendent will authorize and develop process and procedures, which we're working on. We have that revision completed to allow our school security personnel to carry firearms in conformity with all the requirements of Section 2210A40 to 2210A41, and of course the Mexico Administrative Code 61212. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have in relation to that.
Okay, thank you. First, I can hear myself echoing in your computer, Sal, I think, if you want to mute yourself for a moment. Lauren Hatch, did you want to say anything? I just saw your camera come on. I just want to give you a chance before I go to Dr. Cleveland.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just here to help answer questions as well. I think Sal said it very well when he reminded everybody that we've had a very successful program over the last almost 2 years. I think Rio Rancho is actually the trailblazer in that area and the only school district that had authorized armed security. So we kind of invented the program in conjunction with our insurance carrier and also the NMPD. When this new law was passed, we had some input in the drafting of it. And I think the law itself actually simplifies our responsibilities a little bit, makes it very clear what needs to be done and what is specifically authorized, beginning with having the board consider this in an open meeting and making a determination.
Okay, thank you, Lauren Hatch. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to give comments?
Just here's the short version compared to the other we were just discussing. But to Mr. Hatch's point, there isn't a lot of case law related to this. There's not a lot of regulations when you're first starting. If I were to predict in the future, we'll see this grow like we have the Title IX grow. But I think it's been a very successful program, and we actually like the flexibility really that's given here to be able to adapt it to our community and our staff's needs. But those are the only comments that I have.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. So we'll now go to the board. We'll start with Secretary Scott.
Yes, all three of you have defined it as a successful program. Could you define success for me? What makes it a successful program? Sal?
Well, Secretary Scott, I would say to me, and what makes it successful is that the comments that I receive from the public that thank us for having this program, that they feel that their children are more secure in the school environment. The positive comments that we've received from teachers and school administrators that appreciate the fact that we have retired law enforcement officers who are highly qualified and trained, working in that capacity and keeping our schools safe, and even the students. I see the interaction that students have with our security officers in general, but I'm going to say specifically some of our armed security officers, because they have that law enforcement background, that our officers become mentors to a lot of these students. And a perfect example is I have a armed security officer who is stationed at Mountain View Middle School, who not only is he's a retired state police officer, he's highly qualified, highly experienced. He's a former bomb technician. He comes to us with a great level of training and experience, and he's a coach. And I can't tell you how gratifying it is to me as an executive director to walk through the halls and see these kids, these students talk to the security officer, and they refer to him as, "Hey, coach, how's it going?" And just that camaraderie that our officers develop with our students, and the comments that we get from the public, to me, that's achieving great success with this program.
Thank you. I appreciate you answering my question.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Morgan.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Catherine Cullen.
Thank you. This is Catherine Cullen. So, and I don't have all the paperwork from back when we had approved this program, but as I recall, I think the law had originally allowed where the superintendent could authorize it, but we had taken the route to have the board review it, and we went through quite a few public comment sessions and all that. So is this just kind of cleaning it up and putting it under the board?
Yes, ma'am, I believe so. Maybe Lauren may want to add a little bit more comment to this, but now what we're doing is we're actually being compliant with the administrative code and the statute that does put the authority on the school board to create the policy and to allow the superintendent to create the process and procedures.
This is Sue Cleveland. The one thing I would add about that is I think we all said at the time, kind of reflecting on what Board Member Cullen has said, was that we wanted this to be a team effort, and we wanted our folks to feel like it had the support not only of the administration but of the board. And so, and I think that was a very wise way to go. And I do think that it provides the whole organization, it provides a clear message that we are in support of this. The other thing I would add is to Board Member Scott's, Secretary Scott's comments about a successful program. I would add that the program has been recognized across the state. And Mr. Maniaci has been asked to go and testify in Santa Fe and provide some support for other districts who have heard really good things about the program. But I think the most important is what we've heard back from community and staff in particular, their feeling of security and feeling that they have an extra layer of protection that's very important to them. But I do want you to know that the program has been looked at by other districts in New Mexico, and they have actually testified in Santa Fe about the program at a couple of the committee's requests. So I would just add those couple thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland, for sharing that. Catherine, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Wynn Coleman.
Thank you. This is Board Member Coleman. I just want to say thank you for bringing this up. I would like to ask that at some point, maybe over the next couple of meetings, that as we're talking about security, and I know in Dr. Cleveland's presentation this evening, she talked about students carrying backpacks. I think it would be helpful to just have a little bit of a presentation on how security-wise we're handling things now, since backpacks are going to be allowed in the classrooms. So if you could just give some thought to presenting that and how things will look different now as far as with security.
We will certainly do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Coleman. And I wrote it on my list too, so when we go over agenda for the next one, we can talk about that. Anything else, Board?
Nope.
Nope. I do want to add comments. I know this has always been a hard one, and it's already been decided in our district. But last year, and I've brought this up before, but last year when my daughter came home from her first day freshman year of high school, and her favorite part of the day was learning how to barricade the door in one of her classrooms, and how they could get out. It really struck me that our students need to feel safe. And so I'm grateful for these measures that our district takes to help our students to feel safe. And we've had numerous conversations about it in our home, and my kids do feel more safe with these measures that have been taken. So thank you for doing them. And I know it's a growing process that we'll be going through as we continue with it. It's still relatively new for our district. And so, but we're grateful to have our students be safe. So thank you, Sal and Lauren and everyone involved with putting this together for us tonight for this first reading. Thank you.
Thank you, President Galbraith.
Okay. I have to find my place. Okay, so we will now consider item G, consider the approval of notice of proposal of issue of general obligation school bonds. Michael Baker, our Chief Operations Officer, will present.
Michael Baker, Chief Operations Officer, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the school board. This evening, we are requesting action by the school board to notice a PED that we will be going out for a $15 million sale on general obligation bonds. If you recall, this past November, the public in Rio Rancho did elect to approve those bonds. And so this will be the first of a series up to $60 million, $15 million per year. So this is the first step, just essentially putting a PED on notice. At the next school board meeting, we will have our attorney as well as our financial advisor that will present the packet and the detail to the school board in regard to the details of that sale. So for this evening, the action that we request for the board is simply just to notice or to give PED notice that we are in that process. With that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. We'll start with Noreen Scott.
I have no questions. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, Vice President Morgan.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Board Member Cullen.
No, thank you.
Board Member Coleman.
Thank you, but no questions.
Okay. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to say anything?
No, I don't have any additional comments.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baker. So
this is Board Member Catherine Cullen. I make a motion for the approval of notice of the proposal to issue general obligation school bonds.
This is Secretary Scott, and I will second.
okay, we have a motion by Board Member Cullen and a second by Secretary Scott. Jane, can you take a roll call vote on this for us?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, we'll now move on to our last item in our business, and I need to find my notes. I'm going to ask, as we go through this, Dr. Cleveland, and also, oh wait, I'm going ahead because now I see my camera's up. She's smiling at me. I'm just jumping the gun. So we have one more. I just crossed out before I should. So item H is to consider the approval of the 2020-2021 Comprehensive Support and Intervention Grant application. And we have Suzanne Gwynn Wisniewski, who's our Executive Director of Federal and Bilingual and Native American Programs, here to present.
Good evening. Thank you, President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. This is Suzanne Wynn Wisniewski, Executive Director of Federal, Bilingual, and Native American Programs. I am respectfully requesting approval of the CSI grant for Independence High School. Under the NMPED's Every Student Succeeds Act approved plan, Independence High School, as was every alternative high school in the state, was first identified as a CSI school in the spring of 2018, which opened up a competitive grant opportunity to help develop and implement targeted interventions with the goal of achieving dramatic school level achievement, which they have and continue to achieve. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the closure of schools, the PED will hold constant the federal designations of CSI for all schools that held that designation. So this in turn provides currently identified CSI schools with an additional year of funding, and this application was written on their behalf to continue the services that they have been under this grant, which includes implementation of the Check and Connect system and also extended learning opportunities through Saturday school and additional periods, 0 and 5th hours, to offer additional opportunities for students at Independence. I stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Scott or Secretary Scott?
Okay. I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. I'm getting good at reading lips as I was watching you through the Vice President Morgan.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Cullen.
Suzanne for. Yeah.
She said thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And Board Member Coleman.
Thank you, but I have no questions.
Okay. And I don't have any questions either. Thank you so much. And I will entertain a motion for this one.
This is Board Member Catherine Cullen. I make a motion.
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I second.
Good. For the approval of 2020 to 20 grant application.
Okay. We have a motion by Board Member Cullen, and then we have a second by Jeffrey Morgan. Jane, can you please take a roll call vote for us?
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Now we will get to item I, which is to consider the approval to endorse the Las Cruces Board of Education resolution. And so for this one, and it's up on our screen, I'm sure everyone's had an opportunity to read through it. And Dr. Cleveland's here with us, and I wanted to have Lauren Hatch just for a moment too on. So first off, just because we have some new board members, I asked Mr. Hatch if he wouldn't mind just kind of helping us to understand resolutions a little bit and where they end up, just to give us a quick run through of that. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Madam President. A school board is primarily a legislative body, and its main voice is enacting policies, which the board has done 3 times tonight. However, sometimes the board wants to make a statement or take a formal action that is something less than a policy, but might either memorialize an action that it's taking, or in the case of the policy or the resolution that's in front of us, the Las Cruces Public School Board wanted to make a statement about health data in relation to the pandemic that we're going through now. They're not in control of dissemination of that information, but they wanted to make a statement about their thoughts on it to those who do control that information. And so they wrote a resolution presenting their mind. It's a formalized action by the board, and it would be recorded in the board's business records. Another example would be something that we'll be considering next week, and that is a resolution to engage in a financial transaction like selling bonds. And that's a formalized action that needs to be recorded in the records of the board. I hope that's helpful. Any questions that you might have on that?
I'll just look for your face. Do you guys have any questions on resolutions? We have opportunities to submit these currently, and so I just wanted to kind of make sure we all had an understanding, at least us the newer board members. Okay. So this resolution, and just a second, I'll have Dr. Cleveland. She can talk more about it, I'm sure. I came across it from Dr. Cleveland last week. Las Cruces passed this resolution last week in their board meeting. And
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, can you hear us? Do you have a question, Catherine, as I'm going?
No, sorry, you guys cut out. So
Hey,
Could I suggest that Catherine call in? Because I'm sure she has something to say.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know what it is.
Hey, Catherine, we can't hear you. Do you want to call in, and while we're going through, just call in for your voice? We'll give her we'll give you just a second before we finish up. I'm guessing Catherine's going to talk a little bit more too about the resolution, since she's been on the board for some time now.
Yeah, I would really like to hear what she had to say. I think it's probably some valuable information.
Yeah, we'll give her just a second.
Can I ask a technical question? Why do we have that problem sometimes? And it happens to a lot of us that you freeze. What causes that?
I think John's probably on, but usually it's each of our own individual internet and how much bandwidth that we have on our individual. Catherine, where she lives, she has a lot of people in a neighborhood around her that share the same internet. And so it's just because it's in the evening and everyone's home and accessing the same thing. All the tech guys who are on, you guys can let me know if I got that right. I speak a little bit of tech because my husband's a computer guy. So,
thank you.
Yeah. All right, Catherine, were you able to get on? We can.
I thought
can you guys hear me now?
Yes, there you are. Yeah.
Feel like a commercial. So with those, sorry for making you guys hold. So with those resolutions, they're presented, there's a committee with the New Mexico School Board Association that they go through the resolutions that will be presented to the state legislature. The committee goes through it and then it goes to their annual convention as well, and they're discussed at the convention. Before they go to the legislature. And then New Mexico School Board Association puts together these resolutions to present to them. So they go through a committee process. So I'm assuming this is what Las Cruces' resolution is. And then they're just trying to get some other school boards to sign on to that resolution. And then it gets submitted to the New Mexico School Board Association. And then again, it's discussed within their committee. They come out of that committee with what resolutions they're going to present for approval at the convention, and then it goes on to the legislature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Catherine. Do you guys have more questions on that? Go ahead, Mary.
So there, if you guys look at, so I did bring this up to Dr. Cleveland. I forwarded her an email from it. From the New Mexico School Board Association just sent out an email in reference to the resolutions that are due in September, and you can go on there. There's a link, hyperlink, so you guys can see what has been continued, the resolutions that they continue to run, and then anything else that, so that you're not trying to redo what they've done in the past. So it's if you guys find that email from New Mexico School Board Association, you can kind of read what those resolutions are.
Catherine, this is Secretary Scott. I think that some of the questions being asked are pretty germane to the discussion. So, is there a chance that the association will move this forward a little quicker than September?
No,
Madam President, can I add just a point of clarification? I would have, I kind of addressed this. My understanding is this one is to go now to Board Member Scott's. This is going to the governor, and I believe it is going to the Department of Health. And so I don't think they're waiting for a legislative. Almost all of our resolutions over the years have been directed at the New Mexico legislature. But I think that this will probably go there later. But to the point, this is information that they want now, and they feel like it's important for this to go forward before the New Mexico legislature meets. So it's my understanding, and I will verify that with Superintendent Trujillo. My understanding is wanting this done now. As we're looking at reentry and what all of that is going to look like, the feeling is that their board wanted current information that currently is being sent to the counties, but is not necessarily being sent to the school districts. We have a very good situation here. We work well with our county. And when I've asked for information related to COVID, I've received it. I've never had any kind of, no, we can't give you that information or anything like that. I'm not sure it's the same everywhere across our state. But even that requires that the superintendent or board reach out to that other entity. And I believe the Las Cruces board and superintendent's feeling is that it's such important information, they would like to receive it at the same time that our counties receive that information. So this is, I believe, to be moved forward. And I think if they can't get it resolved, I'm sure it will go to the session. But I think they're wanting some support on it now and to try to get this information. And they just wanted the governor's office, the Department of Health, others that are involved in this, to know how strongly they felt like that information really should be shared with school district decision makers and school district administrators in as timely a manner as possible. So when I wrote this, then they reached out to several districts and said, you know, would you ask your board if they would do just a letter of support? And one of the conversations that came up was, you know, should we do our own resolution? And very respectfully, they said, you can do, of course, whatever you want to do, but we would really prefer you not to, because what we want is the same resolution to be supported and not different resolutions going. And they're having to pick among different resolutions. So they did not want districts to do their own if they couldn't sign on, because it complicates the process. To Board Member Cullen's point, that's why most resolutions go through the School Boards Association, is so that you don't have all these competing resolutions that the legislature has to pick and choose among, and they're just maybe a little tiny bit different. So the process that the School Boards Association has had for many years is a really good one, because it allows the school boards to speak with a unified voice. But I think this one came because of the very unusual structures that we have right now in terms of the pandemic. And every district is trying to decide, you know, will they go a little longer? You know, what is the information? And school boards need that information, according to the Las Cruces district, that I personally agree with them, in a very timely manner. So I'll try to answer any other questions you might have, but I just wanted you to have that background to know kind of how it came about, why it's a little different than normal resolutions, and why they're acting on it now. And I am sure they're going to take it to send it to the School Boards Association, but would like to have the data as soon as possible. And my recommendation would be that you support the Las Cruces board just simply as a letter of endorsement, if you in fact do, and that is your feeling that you want to support it. But that, you know, we don't do our own. And if you do have any reservations, of course, then we won't. And that's just strictly your call. But they're wanting it so many times in our state. One of the first things they ask is, well, is this just your district feeling this way? Or are there other districts that have the same strong feelings about this topic? And I don't think they're going to get a lot of, I think they will get a lot of districts that will sign on, that really would like to have this, all of this information in a more timely manner and not filter it through the county. Last comment is the county too is very busy. The county has so much on the plate. And one more step to have to get that out sometimes is, it's difficult for them. So I could certainly answer any questions, but that's the information that I have to share with the board.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Go ahead. Let's go with Noreen Scott, and then we'll go over to Catherine Cullen.
This is Secretary Scott. I would like to move that we sign on to the Las Cruces resolution. I think we all want to believe that any of the decisions we are making are based on scientific evidence. And the sooner we get the most detailed information, the better our decision-making capabilities are. And I think that it's important that we have as timely a data as possible.
Thank you, Noreen. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there further questions? Let me go to Catherine Cullen.
Yes, this is Board Member Cullen. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland, for, and I was cutting out, so I couldn't hear part of the presentation earlier. So thank you so much for clarifying that, because I wasn't sure why we had this one on the agenda and how and why with the New Mexico School Board Association. So this is, thank you for clarifying that. And absolutely, I'm in support of doing this. So I know there'll probably be further discussion, but I will do a second on it.
Okay, we have a second by Board Member Cullen. Jeffrey Morgan, did you have any comments?
No, none at all. I agree.
Okay.
Let's move forward. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Wen Coleman, do you have any comments or questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Jane, can you take a roll call vote on this? Have I lost Jane?
Sorry,
I don't know what to do.
microphone.
There we go.
I couldn't get it to open. Apologize. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. I don't know what I would do without Jane. I think everything would fall apart if we lost her on the call. So I'm grateful. So that is the end. We're going to look at our advanced planning. We have August 11th will be the first day, which is tomorrow, first day for elementary school. August 24th is our next regular board meeting. With that first day of elementary school, I just urge all our parents and teachers and everyone to be patient with themselves and with everything. I think it's been going well, but it's hard for all of us as we move through these school openings in a way that we've never done before. So appreciate everyone for coming out to our meeting tonight, and this meeting is